Alrighty, thanks for being here today. I want to go real quick through and just kind of try and get an idea of names and how long you've been in the business, whether or not you got your license yet, and all that kind of fun stuff. And since you sat up front, can I pick on you first?
Great, sit up front.
Go ahead.
Bruce Riley.
Bruce, okay.
Had my license for about 4 weeks now.
Okay.
And new in the real estate, done some investing in the past, but decided I wanted to get in the business.
Okay, good. Good, Bruce, thank you.
Dave Bickett, new to the business, about 3 weeks, have my license.
Okay, good.
Trish Truax, 22 years in the business. Just recently moved from Metro Brokers to Cherry Creek.
Oh, okay, welcome. Welcome to Cherry Creek. Let's start with you, sir.
Tony Weissenberg, I've had my license for about a month and a half, so it's getting started.
Alrighty.
Sue DeWeese. I've had my license since April.
Okay, all right, congratulations.
You know me.
Yeah, but you can tell everybody else who you are. That's okay.
I'm Mary Wu. I got my license in February, but I did not sign up until July 14th.
Okay, all right. Good.
Hi, Lori Beck. I have my license, I think, for about 4 weeks.
4 weeks, okay,
Hi, John Murtha. I've had my license for a couple months.
okay.
Wow.
I'm Glenn Fishman. I've had my license my whole life, it seems like. 20 years plus.
You started when you were 12, right?
We're in the same
Oh,
club.
yeah.
Okay.
No, probably about 28 years I've been licensed.
Okay,
Working with it.
all right, congratulations.
And I just came over from Keller Williams. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, yeah, I came from Keller Williams too. Anybody else from Keller? There's a whole bunch of us from Keller.
Yeah,
Maybe in this
yeah.
class. And next to you?
No, me too. I'm Anjanette Stedman, and I've had my license since about April.
April, okay.
I'm Liz Vieira. I've had my license for about 2 weeks.
Okay.
I'm Mandy Bonner. I've had my license in New York for over 7 years and just moved here a year ago and got my Colorado license in April.
Oh, great. What part of New York?
Upstate New York, between Albany and Saratoga Springs,
Okay.
to the capital.
I went to Cortland, SUNY
Okay,
at
so
Cortland.
that would be west.
Yeah, I did my internship in Roxborough, in Rochester.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's west.
Hi, my name is Audrey Holland. I got my license July 2013. I just started in real estate. This is the second month.
Okay, congratulations.
Hi, my name is Lisa Casillas, and I've had my license for 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Woo-hoo. Okay. Alrighty. So as I said, for those who just came in, we're going to take these, put them on vibrate, stick them in your pocket. When they go off and you get a smile on your face, we know you'll have to step out and take a call. So, okay, no ringing, no pinging, no, nothing like that. Okay? So here's the thing, we're going to be talking about working with buyers. And this is assuming your buyer has already come to you in one form or another. And it's really about what do buyers want to know? First question is always what? Can I buy a house in today's market? There's still buyers out there that think the only program available is 20% down. And they're not aware of any of the other programs. I've noticed an upswing in VA loans where the buyer is current or ex-military and they go, well, yeah, no money down, but they forget about closing costs. They just think no, there's no money down. I don't need anything. They forget about their earnest money and closing costs. Some buyers don't even know what earnest money is, so you'll have to be a little careful when you talk with people about the language you're using. Okay? How much will it cost to buy the house? What's the buying process? How long will it take? Why do I need a real estate agent? Though most these days, quite frankly, know they can really use this. And how many of you have seen the new NAR commercial, National Association of Realtors? It's on TV. They're doing a big push to show how realtors can really help you get into home ownership. It's a bunch of average Joes going, oh, without my realtor, I don't know how we've done it. So glad my realtor was there for me, right? Just that kind, just to let them know that we're here to help them, okay? And then, of course, who pays the real estate agent? Some of that stuff has changed in our contracts. All right, so kind of like the song Getting to Know You, getting to know you, getting to trust you, means that you're going to have to do some things. I am always amazed at the stories I hear from buyers that I end up getting from another agent. The agent didn't show up on time or totally missed the appointment. the agent didn't come prepared to either share information with them, give them information, or show them properties. You know, the agent, can I share your story, Mary? Mary's agent, when she bought, never said a word to her, just opened up the door, said, go take a look, and then closed the door, right? That was about it. Okay. Oh, she did ask you a question, right? Did you like it? No? Okay, next house. That was the extent of her script and dialogues, as we like to say, right? Okay. So, what do buyers want most from real estate agents? This is a study done in 2013.
Value.
Value how? Explain value. Oh, by the way, now that you know I have a jacket, I'm taking it off.
Service, attention, efficiency, accuracy in terms of what they're looking for, guidance through the process.
Okay, so according to this, helping them find the right home to purchase. Half of them, which includes a bunch of that stuff,
Right.
right? Because right now we know they can find houses. In fact, in that NAR commercial, they talk about, there's another, I don't know if it's, is it a RE/MAX commercial? Laura, you might know. Is it the RE/MAX commercial that says there's a difference between living near the train and right on top of the train tracks? Is that a RE/MAX? That might be a RE/MAX commercial. But again, it shows the fact that a realtor can help you distinguish, oh, that looks like a great piece of property on Zillow or Trulia or Google, wherever I saw it, and then you get there and wow, you know, didn't know it was so close to the train tracks. In fact, one of my first showings when I was a new agent was showing a house that was right off of Santa Fe, and they had a big yard and a fence, and I didn't realize those big train tracks, this is way before the light rail, those big train tracks are right down there. And the clients were asking me why the home hadn't sold until the train came by, and the whole house shook. And I was like, okay, we now know why. All right, so that's a little too close to the train tracks. All right. Most people, you know, this is the big one, helping find the home, the right home to purchase. Okay. Also helping them know the value of that home. Like you mentioned the word value. I always think that's good if you can either show up with a snapshot of what's going on in the market for that neighborhood. If you've got a buyer looking at, say, some condo units within a 2-mile radius, you can pull up what's been happening in those areas fairly quickly and go prepared. So when they say, is this a good price? You can look down and say, well, the last 3 2-bedroom, 1-bath units sold for X in this complex. And so you have the answer right there for them. Or you have it pulled up on your iPad, however you want to do it. I still tend to be a bit of a paper person, though I do have an iPad and an iPhone and use them. But sometimes I like my paper. Okay, so 3 main jobs of an agent, well, any agent really, but for today, a buyer's agent. Okay, ask questions. How many of you ask questions? Okay. What kind of questions?
What do you like about the house?
What do
don't you like about it?
What don't you like? What do you like? Okay. All right. What kind of questions do you ask before that you ever take them out? Do you ask any questions? Just say, hey, let's go see 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes with
What's your
garages.
current living situation?
What's your current living situation?
Are
Why do you want to
on a
know
lease?
that?
They may be on a lease,
Okay.
12-month lease or so, they can't get it. Why do you want to move?
Why do you want to move? Okay.
What area do you want to live in?
What area do you want to live in? Oh, I like these questions. You guys are good. I'm hearing a lot of what I call the what questions. You know, what, where, when, why. Those are good questions to keep in mind, because one of the reasons those are good questions is because they're called open-ended questions. They're open questions. They're not are you, do you, have you, which calls for a yes or no answer. The what questions let you be quiet and listen to hear what they have to say, because it gets them talking. Okay? Negotiate. You're going to negotiate. That's why they're hiring you, because you're going to be the one that isn't emotionally involved in the fact that the bedroom is the favorite purple color, you know, or they just love the yard and they just feel they have to have the house. You can negotiate based upon values and knowledge of the neighborhood. Okay, and then overseeing all the transactional details. Has anyone figured out how many signatures you have to oversee these days, even though supposedly we're doing everything electronically?
512, I think.
512,
I think.
from all the parties involved, right? Because we
Might be a
got
little more, yeah.
a whole bunch of parties involved, don't we?
That's right.
Don't we got buyers and sellers, we got agents on both sides, we got title people, right? We have lender people, we have appraisers. What else have we got?
Inspectors.
Inspectors, okay. And that could be several different inspections, depending on how many they're doing, right? Okay, so. Okay. All right, so who am I talking to? And who am I? All right, I'm going to talk about some styles here to help you communicate. Has anyone heard of the DISC profile? D-I-S-C. Okay? DISC profile is a way to sort of, you can watch people and look at them, and as you listen to them, you kind of get the idea of who they are. And it will help you either speed up or slow down in your speaking patterns, maybe listen more. I tend to, for some reason, I'm a high DI, but for some reason I tend to attract a lot of engineers. And I've had to learn to really slow down. I mean, I got a guy right now, when I show him a property, he's busy at the front door examining the door before he ever walks in the house. For those of you that work with, you know these kind, they're like, I don't know, Peggy, this wall may not be straight, you know, right? And I'm standing going, it's a wall, can we go see? You know, I'm ready to go, you don't like it, let's go, next one. But you know, those engineer types, they're processors, they need to do these kind of things to get themselves to a point where they can make a decision. So you're going to learn that you have to, no matter what your style is, you have to sort of, it's kind of like getting on the highway, you have to adjust to the speed or lack of speed of traffic. That's what those on-ramps are for, right? If traffic's flowing, you're speeding up to traffic. If traffic stops still, you're going to slow down as you merge into there. So it's the same with your folks. So the DISC, D's are drivers. Direct, decisive, I like to call them New Yorkers. Like, yeah, we know it. I'm talking here, right? I'm walking here, right? We know where we're going, we know what we want. We don't need to think a whole lot. You tell us, you know, the what, the when, how much, and we're ready to make a decision. We're good, right? Okay. Greatest fear for us, though, is being taken advantage of. Oh, we don't want that. We don't want that. Okay, eyes are influencers. These are the folks, look at the pretty flowers in the yard. Look at the pretty window treatments. Look at the nice paint color in the house, right? These are the people that, you know, they're talkative, they're impulsive, they really, really like to kind of look around and get a good feel for the house. They're not real detail-oriented. You know, it's sort of like the big picture type folks, okay? And their biggest fear is rejection. They really want to be liked. This is a lot of real estate agents, by the way. A lot of real estate agents are salespeople, and they lead with their eye, and they want to be liked. I don't understand why my client didn't like me, right? They want to be liked by people. Their biggest fear is rejection. S's. S's are your sort of even-tempered people. Teachers, nurses are usually lead with their S's. You know, these are people that are just very calm, you know, very even-keeled, okay? Sometimes it's hard to get them to come to a decision. They're also what I call information gatherers. A lot of times when I know I have either an S or a C that I'm going to go see, I'm bringing a lot of info. And I'm going to say, sleep on it. Don't, because I know they won't be able to make a decision. My D's and I's won't need that much info. And they'll be like, I can make a decision now, right? So it's greatest fear is loss of security. And then the last is you're either compliant or very correct type personality. You know, they're very accurate. They're your engineer types, your accountant types. Everything has to be a certain way. They're the ones that are going to find the typos in your contract, because they're actually the only ones who actually read every single line in the contract, right? That's that kind of person right there. Okay? So, how many people, after those four, the D-I-S-E, how many of you would consider yourself Ds? Okay, we got a couple in the room. Somebody can't make up their mind, okay. How many are Is?
Definitely.
Is, okay. How many are S's? Oh, good caretakers of your folks. You'll take very good care of your people, okay? And how many of you are C's? One, okay, good for you. All right, now here's the news is if you ever take a DISC test, you're gonna find you're sum of all. Nobody's just one. It's really what you tend to lead with. But we're all sort of, if you look at my profile, my D and I are way up here. I really have no S, and then my C is up a little bit. So, we're all a mix of at least 3 of the 4, and we tend to lead with one or the other. Now I want to just talk a little bit about some conversions. Okay, I like to divide people up. As you start getting into the business and you start lead generating, not every lead is going to end up being a client. So we want to sort of figure out who are these people that we're meeting. And you're meeting people through parties, networking, open houses. If you're prospecting, it's either through calling or door knocking or doing a community event. You might meet them at your place of worship. You might meet them at picnics, wherever you happen to be these days. So leads are really people we've met. They may have a real estate need. Oh, my son's coming back from college, I'd like to get on a condo. Or we need to downsize. Or we're expecting triplets, we need to get a bigger house. Or whatever it is. But we don't have any of their information. We met them at a party. Okay? Prospects are people we've met and we have their contact information, which means we can reconnect with them and continue the conversation. And then clients are those people with whom we've established a business relationship. In other words, we have a contract with them. We're either a seller's agent for them, a buyer's agent, or both. And then the contracts are clients whom we're negotiating a deal with, and we're going to go to the closing table, which is really nice because that leads to closings, yay! And we get paid at those, no place else. This is a really weird job. Has anyone ever thought about this? This is a really weird job. You show up for work. How many of you showed up for work yesterday? Only 1? 2? Okay, 2 showed up for work. Did you get paid? I showed up for work yesterday. I didn't get paid yet. Now I'm hoping to have this in another week or 2. But yeah, see, we show up for work and we don't always get paid right away. So, okay. Are we doing okay here? Food coma set in yet?
They're just shy.
They're shy.
They're type C's.
Okay, so, I figured they'd be a little shy, so we're going to play a game. I'm going to keep this in front of you. So we're going to play Peggy's Discovery game. All right, I want you to partner up with somebody. Hopefully somebody you don't know. Oh, it doesn't really matter. Anyway. Okay? All righty. So, let's report in and see how we did. Who had scenario 1? Scenario 1, only 2 people. Okay. All righty. And how did the questioning go?
Well, Anjanette was the agent, and I'm the seller, also the buyer.
Okay.
And I thought she asked some good questions. She was a little caught off guard when I said that I had my house listed currently with another agent, but we're looking for another agent to find us on. So she had to process that.
Yeah, real life scenario. I've got a couple right now that I'm working with where their listing agent only does listings. They didn't like the buyer's agent she picked for them, so I step into the scenario. So you never know, but just be aware. And I asked upfront questions like, how come you weren't using a listing agent? And they said, well, she doesn't do buyers. I'm like, okay. Luckily, I do both. No problem here.
Which she asked appropriately, so she understands the whole picture.
Very good, very good. All righty. How did it feel?
A little uncomfortable.
What made it uncomfortable?
Just what he said, that he already had a listing agent, so I didn't know if I should try to go for that.
Okay.
You know.
Always when it runs out.
And after you finished asking your questions, you felt what? Like you could work with him, or? Okay. Alrighty, good, good. How about you guys over here?
Great. Mary was the broker and I was the buyer. And the only thing we didn't cover, I guess, is, when you last had bought a property.
Okay.
But everything else was covered via the questions. And I guess that might be relevant because things have really changed, right? E-signatures and contracts and laws.
Right, and a lot of
So it's
times,
really good to know that.
it is very good to know, and a lot of times you kind of want to know, what's your experience been in real estate? Have you ever bought? If you bought, when did you buy? Where did you buy? Did you buy by yourself? Did you have a mom or dad help you with the first house? You want to sort of find what their experience was. And I always like to ask, how come you're not using the agent that sold you the house? Or, really, come on, don't be afraid of those questions. Because if they're sitting in front of you, it's not like they're going to go, I just wanted to test you. I'm going to go back to the other agent. I'm here with you right now. You probably got him. Only thing you don't have is a signature. You probably got him. If you just don't be afraid of those questions that go, like, he's got a listing agent? What's up with that? Right? Find out. Don't be afraid to ask. Okay. So, who had scenario number 2? The guys up front. Okay. Who was who? Who was the agent? Who was the
Agent buyer.
agent buyer? How did he do? Did he find out about you?
Sure.
Scenario 2, by the way, the buyer is a landlord who's notified them that he can stay in the place if he buys it, but if he doesn't, you got to get out in 30 days. This is happening right now. Landlords are finally going, oh, thank goodness, we can finally sell the place. Do you want to buy it? You don't want to buy it? Out. Okay, let's go. Let's put this thing on the market, right? And so a couple of questions. You were the agent? You were the buyer. What did you ask?
Well, I asked him what was motivating him to make a change where he's living now.
Okay.
And so he went through the scenario about the lease and all that stuff.
Okay.
And then we got to a point at some point what he was looking for. Like, what's their basic needs? What do they want out of a house?
Okay.
And 2 bedrooms, 1 3/4 baths, and it was pretty specific.
Okay.
It was their basic minimum need. Now the disadvantage was, he said, I want to live in Cherry Creek. And he said, I have $130,000. Like, we kind of laughed.
Of course.
We both laughed.
And we will have buyers that,
think
don't know.
outside.
They don't know what it's going for, or they've been told by their dad who last bought a house 30 years ago what the price should be.
Right.
Did you talk about the lease and any kind of, if any kind of notice that needs to be given or anything like that?
I did ask him if the landlord had any flexibility in that.
Okay.
It took him 60 days to get out, because it's kind of funny, because it says it's got to be out in 30 days, but in the bottom it says he has to give 60 days notice.
Correct, that's exactly how the lease reads. So you're going to run into some of this stuff. And you had brought up if they have a lease, I think earlier. So, don't be afraid to ask people about their lease, and then ask them, have they talked with their landlord about their intention to move? In this market, it's not such a bad conversation. The landlord might be very happy to get rid of them, because then he can up the rents and put somebody else in there. All right, in fact, Sunday's paper said there's a lack of rentals, correct? Anyone reading the business section these days? Yeah, keep your eye on that, because that's where some of our information is. And it's because landlords are selling. So it's no longer the scary, don't talk to your landlord till we find something. It's more about, have you started this conversation with your landlord? Have you checked? Do you need 30 days notice or 60? I've had clients in the past that thought they only need to give 30 days and the lease says 60 days. Well, that changes things in our contract, doesn't it? So, again, one of those conversations where you're going a little bit deeper. You want to try to find out more than just 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and I'd like a garage with that. All right? Who had scenario 3? It had to be the rest of the room. Oh, we only have a few volunteers. Okay, don't be shy. All right, over here. How did it go?
I felt pretty good.
How did he do?
He did good. He did good. his focus, and I think this is something fresh going out into this, his focus was more on what I needed, about everything, all the details about the house. He could relate to the kids, which I thought that was good.
Okay.
The why part, as to why I needed to sell, I had to prompt him
Okay.
a little bit. You want to
Okay.
dive into why. And then we worked on the advocate piece. In a divorce situation, you're always going to want an advocate in there, so.
Okay.
But he did
Yeah,
really good.
this is going on right now. I had the house under contract and then I get the call, we're divorcing. I'm like, what? Who's divorcing who? You got 3 children, there's no divorce, come on. No, then they're actually now both using me, but each one's going in a different direction. One's getting a townhome, one's trying to get another house. So again, you know, that kind of stuff happens. And scenario 3 was you have the house listed, it's under contract, they're getting a divorce, they both refuse to pay rent, so they're going to use you to help them buy. How did it go back there? Did anybody find that out in the other groups that were using scenario 3? Anybody dig deep enough to get to the story?
Well, I was a little confused in the beginning. I think I might have confused her, but I think she asked appropriate questions.
That's okay, you go through a divorce, you will be confused. It's all right.
I think she did great. She asked me the location and why I want to move and where I want to move. And
Okay.
so I thought it was very good.
Okay, good. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with asking some questions of your people. So how did that go for everybody? Feeling pretty good at that? A little different? Yes,
Oh, I just had one question.
sure.
I don't know her name. She brought up having an advocate.
Mhm.
I'm not familiar with what she meant by that.
What, as the buyer's agent, you mean? The buyer's agent would
Is that what
be
you meant when you said
Yeah.
advocate?
Be an
Oh,
advocate,
okay,
yeah.
good.
Okay.
I thought it was something related to a divorce situation. Okay.
I got the feeling, from what she was saying, I got the feeling it had to be with, oh, okay, now you're gonna help me buy what
Somebody
I
who's on
need
your
to with the
side.
children.
Okay.
And then you're gonna go over here and, you know. And the challenge too is, sometimes it'll work. I'm very lucky, I think this couple is having a fairly amicable divorce. But you know, you do have some where they're not talking to each other. Yeah. And they may not want to use you. Or one would want to use you and the other one doesn't want to see your face again,
Yeah.
right? So you just don't know. But the key is, you won't know until you ask the questions, and you don't want the surprises later on. You just don't want to be surprised in something that you forgot to ask. Okay, and we sort of covered this earlier. Those of you that were listeners, so those of you that were the clients, how many of these did you hear from your agent? How many of the sentences started with those words?
You asking for a response?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm looking at you
I know,
guys.
I know, that's
I could go sit down and
I'm
answer my own
realizing
questions, but I don't
nobody's-
think that would really go over too good.
Nobody's
So,
responding, that's why I was.
that's okay.
brought it up.
This is the part where you guys participate. I like the class that gets involved with me, because this stuff can be pretty dry, let's be serious. So when you heard it,
I heard it a lot.
you heard it a lot, very good, very good. And I think you guys, you know, what I've noticed with the classes is, you know, the newer agents have gotten really good at this kind of stuff, learning that it's not, do you, have you, are you, it's more about, you know, what do you want to do, when would you like to do it by, you know, tell me more about the big yard that you want. Are we talking the back 40 or something with a weed whacker? You know, you don't really know until you start asking some more questions, you know. Share with me why you want to do that, or why you want to do it that way, or what's important about living in Cherry Creek for you. You know, and you may find that he doesn't have a car right now, he needs to be close to work, but maybe another neighborhood not too far away would work just as well, as long as it's near the bus line. You know, so again, you won't know till you start talking to your people and asking them questions. And again, this goes back to, I didn't see anybody doing this in the room. So, what do you mean by that? What, you know, don't get too in their face. You're there to build a relationship. Okay, our job is what? Putting individuals and families into houses, which become homes. All right, this is where their life events occur. Tools to help you connect. Okay, one of the things I always do is I bring my buyers a buyer's handbook. And I believe this and several other examples are on Cherry Creek dashboard. So all you have to do is go on the dashboard, and the last slide will show you how to get there. And you can personalize these. I happen to know several title companies also have things that they can send you that you can personalize. The idea behind a handbook is to give information to your people. I deal a lot with first-time home buyers and first-time home sellers. So my big thing is education, all right, and a lot of it. So when you look through mine, it's the first thing is thanking them for meeting with me, okay? Then the next thing is all about, you know, how I can be your resource. So for those of you that are new and are feeling kind of lonely, create a team. How do you create a team? Find yourself a good electrician who isn't booked out till December in this market, a plumber, a handyman, a landscaper, a pet sitter, a child sitter. Find yourself a great title person on speed dial. Oh my God, we got title, I don't know what this means. It says bankruptcy. What does that mean on the title? You know, right? Any of those kind of things, so that you create a team. Carpet cleaners, house cleaners, pet sitters. You know, create a list. Meet with these people, talk with them, become business partners with them. This becomes your little, you know, you don't need to call in, you don't need the yellow pages, you don't need to Google anybody, you don't need Angie's list. I've got Peggy's list, or, you know, whoever's list, right? I've got my own list of people. Then you want to talk about the buying process. What are the steps involved? I mentioned that I have a lot of engineers, so I use a, what is it called again? I always forget the word. Not a spreadsheet, a flow chart, which a lot of my people seem to like because they're engineers, they like flow charts. But, you know, it's all about the buying process. Questions. In here, I have a sheet where it says, getting to know you. And what's amazing to me is when I hand this to people, they start going through it, they start filling this out without me even asking. They're in the car, he's driving, she's filling it out already. Honey, what's your favorite restaurant? Okay, you know, right? You're getting all their info. And then this is going to go into wherever you hold all of your info. I happen to have a sort of a computerized, it's not really a database, it's my people place. But it's where I put all my people, their birthdays, their emails, their addresses, so I can keep on with this conversation and keep in touch with them, okay? The importance of a pre-qual or pre-approval, and the difference between the two. Who knows the difference? Anybody? Okay, you're going to see these words bandied about by a lot of lenders. Some call it a pre-approval. A pre-approval in my world is where you've gone in as the buyer, met with the lender, given him your tax returns, your W-2s, you've given him your last bank statements from the last 2 months, you've given him a pay stub, and she's turned around and said, you're qualified, based upon where you want to have a house payment, this much money putting down, this type of program. That's a pre-approval. The only thing they're waiting for is a good inspection and a good appraisal. Pre-qual is, hi, yeah, my name's Peggy, I'd like to buy a house. All right, yeah, here's my debts, here's my income. Okay, I'm pre-qualified, great. All right, good. Hey, agent lady, I can buy a house for $250,000. That's a pre-qual. All right, there's two different things. And a lot of times I get this pre-approval as a listing agent, and I'm calling the lender and I said, have you met with the people? Oh no, I haven't met them yet. Well, if you haven't met them, they haven't filled out a loan app, they haven't signed a loan app with you, so how's that a pre-approval? Okay, now some do this automatic underwriting type stuff, which is okay, but it's really, you have to be aware of the difference between the two, okay? And I think in today's market, if you're dealing with a first-time home buyer who's up against some other buyers for the same house, I think a solid pre-approval from a lender who says they've met with them, they've got all their info, is going to help your buyer buy the house over somebody who just has a pre-qual.
Do you always call if your buyer states that they've been pre-approved?
I always ask for the lender letter because I want to talk to the lender. And they should have a lender letter. Or they'll say to me, I'll have the lender send you one. And then I have the lender's info. Or I ask for the lender's info. And then I say, hi, I'm meeting with Mr. and Mrs. Smith. They tell me they've met with you, and I find out where they're at. Okay? Access to searches, that's through your website, through Matrix. You know, we know the public's out there on Zillow and Trulia and all the other places, but you want to sort of bring them in and help them and help guide them. So once you meet with them and you find out what they're looking for, then you go home, and how many of you have your own website already? One, a couple, okay. Use the Matrix until you get your own website up and running. You can set them on an automatic search alerts, and it looks like it's coming from you every time, okay? I've had people call me, oh, you just sent me this. I'm like, I did? Okay, what is it? Right, let's go see it. Trusted vendors, again, your title company, your lenders, the people that you work with, that you can trust, that you can hand your people over to and say, oh, you got a question? This guy's the expert. I know enough to make me dangerous, but he knows all the answers. Okay? Glossary of terms, how you operate, and then of course how you get paid. Okay, this is the flow chart. Mine has a buyer and seller side, but you can see in the buyer side here, it shows you how things go within the buying process. And the little stars at the bottom, I usually say that's where there might be money out of pocket. So earnest money, inspection money, appraisal money. Sometimes your lenders ask for that, you know, outside of closing. Okay. Trusted vendor team. Here's all the people. Sewer scope people, photographers who can photograph property. Okay. And I'm sure you guys can. I've got a stager. I've got an interior design person that will talk to my people about cleaning up their stuff and getting rid of the cat piss smell. You know, all the fun parts. All right. Glossary of terms. This is the one where we talk about the language we're using. I fall into this all the time. I'll be yakking with a client going MLS and all this stuff, and, you know, CMA, MNS, and they're looking at me going, what does that mean? Right? They don't know. So in here, in the back, I have a little glossary that talks about what is title insurance? Okay, what is an earnest money deposit? All right, sometimes your buyers don't know, or if it's been a while since they've bought, you might have forgotten. And this way the glossary's there, they don't have to, if they don't feel quite comfortable asking you outright, they can look it up, right? Home warranties, HUD-1s, I use HUD-1s a lot to talk to people about all the numbers, all the figures being on one sheet. That gets very confusing to a lot of people. You guys have just come out of school, know the difference between joint tenancy and tenants in common. I know you do, because you guys are up on this stuff, right? All right, and then you'll hear actives. Even for some very beginners, I'll be like, well, I'll send you a list of actives. What's that? Actives what? Are they running? Are they, you know, what are they doing? They're actives. Like, they don't know. So, you know, or pending. They're not familiar with our lingo. So you have to be careful when you're talking to people. You know, you don't want to make them feel stupid. You don't want to make people feel stupid. You want to go ahead and explain. Okay? Okay, I have a sheet in here that says the 10 Commandments for getting your loan funded. All right, thou shalt nots. Right? Don't change jobs. Don't change checking accounts. Don't go buy the big truck. Don't put the furniture on layaway. All the stuff that's happened to me in the last 14 years of being a realtor and has killed the deal. All right? So you want to remind them. I always tell my people they get to go to Starbucks, and that's about it. And only once a week. Because they got to cut back. Okay? Got to save their pennies. I had a client say to me, I said, yeah, we were going to go to a concert, but we're not going to go to the concert now. We're going to buy a house instead. I'm like, okay. All right. So there. All right, so, and I did say I would mention how to find buyers, but here's just an example. People you already know. People who already know you, like you, and trust you, those are usually the first people. Those are the easiest people to work with, okay? Neighborhood events, so if you're involved in your HOA, okay? Personal website, HUD Home Store. Are you guys familiar with the HUD Home Store website? It shows the HUDs. For those of you that are going, oh gosh, I don't have a listing, I just got my license, it's still damp, we're waiting for the ink to dry. You can go to HUD Home Store, because Dino is a licensed HUD agent, and you can take one of their pictures, one of their listings, and go advertise it on Craigslist and see if you can get the phone to ring. okay, for some buyers. Hey, great deal, X part of town, 20% below average price, give me a call, Joe Realtor, and your number, right? It's a way to get the phone ringing. EDD is a cheap way to mail to a lot of people. All right, you go onto the US Postal website and you can sign up, it's all free. And it's basically, you can mail, they have a map and you click a little thing on the map and you get a little area, it'll tell you how many homes are in that area, and if you decide you want to mail to that many homes, you get this EDD, you bring it on down to the post office, and I do my postcards this way. So you don't need a bulk mail stamp. I believe each piece gets mailed for 16 cents. That's kind of nice compared to the 40, is it 46 now that we have to spend on it? Yeah, I can't believe it. 46 cents for a letter. So, and you can do it for a postcard or a letter or whatever you want to mail, but it's all just 16 cents. Okay. Open houses. We got agents right now that are too busy to hold their own open houses. Give them a call. Tell them, hey, I'd like to hold your house open. All right, get with your lender. All right, have them sit it with you. Get with another agent if you're nervous about sitting it by yourself. Call your mentor and say, hey, part of your mentor duties, come on down to my open house. Sit it with me for a while. Watch me as I answer the door. See how I'm doing, all right? However you want to do it, do some open houses. Marketing around a listing. Again, this is, somebody gets a listing, call them up and say, hey, would it be okay if I marketed around your listing? Then you go 7 doors to the east, 7 doors to the west, north and south. Door knock and go, hi, my name's Peggy, I just want to let you know, we just listed the house over there on 123 Main Street, and we're going to be holding an open house, just wanted to invite you. Hey, Or you can use the old NAR line of, NAR states that when one house goes on the market, within 2 weeks,
a couple more go on right away. So I was wondering, when do you plan on moving?
There you go, right? Okay, it's whatever you want to do. Have fun with the people, all right? Garage sales are a great way. If you ever see garage sales, go on up and introduce yourself. Are you moving, or are we just doing some fall cleaning? I see a lot of packing going on, right? And you may find, there was an agent with Keller Williams that used to do that all the time, and that's how they got listings. Oh yeah, we've been trying to clean it up because we've been thinking about listing. All right, it's your lucky day, I'm a realtor. And you're thinking about selling. Oh wow, here we go. For sale by owners is another way to go meet some people. Hold their house open. Okay, hold a for sale by owners house open. Have your sign out front. Say, listen, here's the deal. I'll have a list for you, I'll get feedback for you, and what do you get? You get a list of names of people who are looking to buy in that neighborhood. I don't know, that's a sort of a win-win. Craigslist ads, we have our mobility app, and then of course networking events. And networking events are all around town, okay? The other thing too is if you guys have a hobby or something that you do, I'm a road cyclist, and I also like to swim, but swimming makes it very difficult to talk because I'm too busy breathing. So cycling works really well for me. But the groups that you cycle with, you don't have to walk around going, hi, I'm the realtor, hi, I'm the realtor. No, you just go around and say, so what do you do for a living? People tell you, what do you think the next question is going to be after they finish talking? The front row now.
You want to buy something.
Right? What do you do for a living? And then you get to tell them. How will you be found? Okay, your website, your Facebook, Twitter, anybody social media over here? Okay, we got 2, 3. Come on, guys. If I can do social media, anybody can, because I am like so old, and we didn't have any of this stuff when I was growing up. So I got to tell you, if I can do this stuff, yeah, anybody can do this. Now, I don't do Twitter yet, but I'm on Pinterest, I'm on Facebook, and I'm on LinkedIn. And it's amazing. All you got to do is post a few things and get people to engage. And find the people that you like already. Let them know what you're doing, I have a YouTube channel, I'm branching into that. Again, the mobility app, the Matrix, which is our MLS, and then of course you involved in either your hobby or the community. Okay? And now, how to bring up your right to a fee. Should we get paid for what we do? No. I see a few people going, well, I don't know. Yeah, I think the answer should be yes. And I think, Lori, this is where you're going to take over, aren't you?
Well, I can.
Oh wow, we're way early.
We are?
You're fine. You're just that good.
No, you guys have been much more engaging and,
I was gonna bring up something from your slide a couple back about just lead sources. There's
okay.
a company out there, you don't have to go back, but there's a company out there called Unique Litho that does unique mailing lists. So if you're looking for people who just got married, people who just got divorced, that type of demographic farming, it's a little bit more expensive than your typical farm, but, you know, it's another good way that potentially you could find first-time home buyers. You know, what's better than newlyweds 6 months after?
And the other thing too is with the title company, are you guys still doing lists of non-owner occupieds and
We
renters?
do the traditional, title company farm lists are based on what we call the assessor's reel. So whatever is on an assessor's card, square footage, living in the house, not living in the house, we can pull reports by that. But as far as demographic type leads lists, we don't have any access to, you know, if people got married or not unless they record a marriage certificate. So, but they, for whatever reason, have certain lists that they subscribe to that can help you do that. They also have apartment lists. So if you're interested in that, I have Harold's contact information for that type of marketing, and I just pass you on to them. But I just thought I'd mention it.
And with rents the way they are these days, I mean, most rents shooting up, most rents are a house payment. I mean, with an FHA loan, or even with a 95.5, I mean, and there's programs out there right now that are like FHA, even though they aren't FHA. So lenders have different ways of avoiding some of the mortgage insurance and some of the other things that allow your people who are renting to actually own a house, if that's something they want to do. So that's a good target. You're either non-owner occupieds or apartment complexes, where you know they're charging. In my neighborhood alone, houses are like, and I live in a little patio home community, 2-bedroom, 2-bath home is going for $1,900 a month rent. That's a house payment. That's more than enough for a house payment. Okay?
And if they're renting, you know, you could maybe partner up with a lender if it's a credit issue or whatever, and work with them together to get them on a credit recovery to make them into a buyer if they're not ready. Because sometimes that's why they're renting. They've lost their home in the last, like, few years ago, and they may not realize that they actually can buy now.
Yeah, and a lot of those people that either lost their home or had bankruptcy or whatever, if it's been 3 years, a lot of them are seen as first-time homebuyers again. So they qualify for some of the free, there's a couple of grant programs around right now where you can have a healthy income but get a grant. And a grant is literally what I call free money. It's not something you pay back. It's a grant that you get for your closing costs to buy a house. As long as you live in it, you can't be an investor using it. Okay? So there's different programs there. Any questions so far then, since we have a little bit of time? Any burning questions, confusion, whatever? Oh, come on, you guys were so good yesterday.
I was just gonna say, like what you were saying, I think a lot of people, when they're in real estate, they think it's too pushy if you tell people that you are one. I think either assured or just talking about your day or whatever, you know, you don't just lean over and say, oh, you wanna buy a house? You know, people will push back from you, but I think being a silent realtor, then you're gonna wonder why you don't have any business. I think you need to be helpful, always be listening if people have a need and offer advice.
And there's classes on how to present yourself as a realtor. In other words, you know, a lot of times we feel a little bit like, yeah, hi, I'm in real estate, so, you wanna buy? You wanna buy? Want to sell? Want to sell? Okay, next, right? And we think that's what it is, the used car salesman mentality, because we're thinking we're gonna kill the party by mentioning what we do. But there's ways you can mention what you do without actually using the word realtor until people ask you to. And this is part of learning your what they call your elevator speech or your 30-second speech. You know, for years I was using, when people say, well, what do you do? I said, well, I help people achieve the American dream. And then I just shut up. And they'd be like, I'd use this at networking events. You know, what do you mean by that? And how do you do that? And what's that about? And then I'd say, well, I help them do that through home ownership, which actually has been the American dream since the end of World War II. Okay. Now it's really been sort of bombed lately because of what's gone on in our market, but people have forgotten that real estate isn't a 3-year turnaround investment. It's not I buy it here, 3 years later I'm going to sell it for 4 times what it was worth. And that was going on for a little while. We had some wacko stuff happening, so people got a little leery. There's other things, you can tell a story. I have a girlfriend who says, you know how does she put it? When you're wishing for something that could just be all yours and just yours alone, she goes, well, I'm like the fairy godmother of real estate. You know, and that's how she presents herself. So you guys can present yourself any way you want. You can make it funny, you can make it cutesy. It doesn't have to be, I'm a realtor, so you want to buy, huh, right? Because that's what we're fearing, so we're like this. Other times you can do it more subtly. You're wearing your name tag. I used to have, years ago when I first got in the business, I had this realtor teach me, go to the grocery store with your name tag upside down. Or hanging sideways, or almost off. Yes. Have you been taught that too? Because we were taught some of that. Floyd Eichmann had all these things. You know, and you'd hang it, and then people would go, oh, your pin is about to fall off. These were the days before magnetics, so tells you how old I am. But, you know, so you'd put the pin on, and you'd go, oh, yeah, thank you. Hi, my name's Peggy. What's yours? Now you're meeting people, right? I used to do, when I was jogging a lot and running, I used to run races, and the t-shirt I would wear that would say on the back, ask me about Colorado real estate. And I'd get asked. I mean, you can do, just your imagination is the only thing holding you back. Do whatever you want to do. Wear a cap that says Cherry Creek Properties on it. Wear your R pin for those of you that are realtors that are taking the ethics. Once you take the ethics class, you get the R pin. For years, I didn't wear mine until a client looked at me after a listing presentation and said, so, are you really a realtor? And I'm like, well, yeah, what have I spent the last hour and a half talking about? And he's like, well, you don't have one of these. So with NAR now doing the commercials the way they are, put this on a cap, put it on a golf shirt, you know, and when people go, hey, how's the market? Well, how did you know I was a realtor? Oh, I forgot all about that. Yeah, what part of the market are you looking at? What can I help you with? What information do you need? Right? I mean, just be okay with doing real estate. It's all right. We're not used car salesmen. And the nice part about our job is the people that don't want to work with you, you don't have to work with them either. You can choose. I mean, most of you decide to become, how many of you decide to become a realtor because you want to be an entrepreneur? You want to have your own business. You want to control your own time. You want to control your own life. You want to create your own vision. Oh, look at all those hands. Oh yeah, that's me back here waving in the back. I'm doing the wave. Okay, that's exactly, but you know, so if you did that, just let your imagination go. All right? You know, find somebody in another state that's doing something that you like to do and do it here. No one's going to know. All right? There's people that wrap their cars, that put logos on the outside of the car. There's a woman in North Carolina that always wears the red hat. She's the red hat lady. I've seen it all through the years. It's amazing. You know, dress your dog up or your kids up, realtor in training, you know, whatever. I used to send out postcards with, you know, lessons I learned from my cat when I had cats. I mean, get to be known for whatever it is that you do. You know, if you're great with numbers, I analyze your home as a perfect investment for your future. You know, if you're more the feely type, it's I'm going to find you the pretty house, or I'm going to find you the best vision for your home life, whatever that might be. Okay? So it doesn't mean you have to be pushy, but it starts with asking questions, and the first question you ask is, what do they do? All right, and then wait for them to ask you what you do. Any other questions so far? How are we doing, okay?
Good.
Still breathing? I'm wondering, some of your food coma? No. Okay. All right.
Eat chocolate. I don't care.
And we got chocolate. Okay. All right, so how to bring up a right to your fee. All righty. Here's the deal. It's all in the questions. And Lori's going to come up here and really talk to you about being a buyer's agent and why she likes to do that, and how you can let them know how you can do that and how that would benefit them. But a lot of times, It's really about telling people, you know, how you get paid. Here's the thing you have to remember, nobody gets paid like we do. Anybody ever hear of a job where the listing agent goes in and talks with the seller, and they decide on a fee or a commission? And then immediately, what does he do with that? He takes a portion of it, usually half, and throws it up and literally gives it away on the MLS. Right? He does. He takes half, he's negotiating. They don't understand how this works. All right? And I just usually talk to them like this. You know, what do you do for a living? Fantastic. I help 1 to 3 families a month buy a house. Okay, I'm not going to do 60 deals in a year, but I'm going to help people find a home. All right? Is it okay if I make money helping you find a home? Most people are like, yeah, sure. And then they go, is it okay if you don't have to pay me? They're like, yeah, I really like that idea, right? And then I ask, will you help me get paid? And one of the ways to do that is to talk to them about how it's presented in the matrix, in our MLS. How many of you, by the way, have been buyer's agents, work with buyers, and are familiar with this year's contract? Okay. When you come to the section on how you get paid, are you having them be responsible for your payment, or somebody else be responsible for your payment?
Oh,
Which
that's
one?
a good question. I can't remember exactly how it's
Okay,
printed.
is it 3, Lori? Is it 3? Because Lori's the best with the contracts and stuff.
Yeah,
What?
I
I'm
do hold
sorry, I
them
was
responsible.
distracted.
You hold them
I hold
responsible?
them responsible, but then in the second paragraph or same paragraph, it says that my obligation is to go after the commission offered by the
Correct.
That's what
lister.
we're gonna talk about in a minute.
Okay.
Correct.
It's a certain paragraph you can check.
Right.
Right, we want you to check that one, where
Right.
they're responsible, but they're giving you instructions to go and get it.
Right.
And as we all know, the way the MLS is, it's printed right there. And I share that with my people. I share my showing sheet. They have their showing sheets, but I share my showing sheets and show them how, see, I'm going to get paid. If you decide to buy this house, we're going to go to closing. I represent you, but they will give me this percentage of the fee. Okay? All righty. Lori, want to take it away? She's got papers.
Take it
She's
away.
got
Yeah, I
handouts.
get the boring part. Yes, I'm gonna be boring.
No, I wouldn't.
Vitally important.
Vitally
Not
important.
this time.
Hey, Peggy, you don't have a sign on it.
Huh?
Pass it down. This is
Sign
a
sheet.
cheat
I have no
sheet.
idea.
So that when you write your first or your 10th buyer representation agreement, you can refer back to this. So feel free to put notes on it. And how many of you have written a buyer representation agreement? Okay. What I primarily do is I mentor a large group of new brokers. So we were just talking about buyers this morning. And one of the things that I do in my buyer packet, like Peggy showed you her packet that she gives to buyers, is I put this form in there. And I literally talk about, there's a couple of ways I can represent you as a buyer. I can represent you as a transaction broker, or I can represent you as your buyer's agent. And what's the difference? To use a football analogy, this may take you guys back to real estate school a little bit if you were told to do it this way. But in a football game, the transaction broker is like the referee, just making sure everybody's playing by the rules. Or I can represent you as your buyer's agent. To use that same football analogy, the buyer's agent is like the coach. What does the coach do? Coach does everything he can to help his team win. So I am only advocating for you in the transaction. Excuse me. So, what?
I'm having a problem.
He's having a problem. Is he gonna fall out of his chair? Anyway, she got tickled, so she's laughing. I just had to know what was coming. So anyway, does that make sense? That's an easy way to explain it to people. But then I go on to say, I work as a buyer's agent with my buyers because, and I go on and I list my bullet points / sales pitch to make them want to use me as their buyer's agent. So most of the scenarios that we had, we were already selected as someone's buyer's agent, right? But that isn't really the way it goes out there. What you really have to do is you have to do a little bit of a sales pitch to people and tell them why they want to hire you in a written agreement to be their buyer's agent. Does that make sense to everybody? And I always tell new brokers, when you're sitting across the table from a buyer, that shouldn't be the first time you think about your sales pitch. You should practice that ahead of time. Okay. And I've got some information I'd be happy to share too. But to use a football analogy usually makes it clear to people there's a big difference in the way you're going to represent them. So I always say, and I work as a buyer's agent. We're here to talk today to see if we're a good fit. And the way I work is I work as a buyer's agent. So then I talk about the written agreement, which is what you have in front of you. Now, you know, I teach at Kaplan. Did anybody go to Kaplan? Yes, I recognize a couple of people. So, anyway, I'm kind of a Nazi about paperwork. Well, Nazi is probably the wrong word, but I would, you know, I'm very, it has to be this way alone type thing. And I want it done right. And what I promise brokers is that I'll never let you embarrass yourself out there by presenting a contract to somebody on the other side or to a client that isn't done right. And I think that it's really important for you to be the professional, and the way you do that is to show up and have the paperwork done correctly. And the first thing you need to know is never, ever, ever on any paper, not just a buyer representation agreement, never on any paper, should there be a blank line. Now, a lot of our contract software these days will put NAs in everywhere. So the way I teach it, if you're using CTME contracts, the first thing you do is you turn off automatic NA. Because the only thing worse in a contract or form, the only thing worse than blank lines is NAs everywhere that it doesn't belong, because somebody didn't turn it off and it's obvious that you didn't pay attention to what was going on in your paperwork. Does that make sense? So turn off the automatic, because it'll put it in where people have to fill in later, and put it in yourself. And that forces you to go through the paperwork. So on this particular cheat sheet, basically I'm going to go through the check boxes and blanks with you. This is obviously what creates your buyer's agency. And your buyer's agency, your exclusive right to buy contract, you can choose exclusive right to buy or buyer's agency or transaction broker. So you can choose either one. Then guess what goes in this date, the date blank? Just kidding. This is a very simple form. This is one of the more simple forms that you'll get started with when you work with a buyer. So some of it's just common sense, and if you read what, you'll be able to figure it out, even if you didn't have a cheat sheet. The other thing I want to tell you is, don't take the notes that are in here literally. For example, I've got a cheat sheet for the contract to buy and sell. And when it asks for what kind of deed, I wrote in there, general or special warranty, right? And I've had my brokers mistake that for, that's what they put in the blank, general or special warranty. They didn't understand, so I forget people are a lot more literal. So the choice is what you do. So don't take it very literally if it's obviously sounds funny. So agreement, basically, this is not how I would necessarily present. I'm focusing here on the blanks and the check boxes. This means that we're going under agreement for me to represent you as your buyer's agent. Broker and brokerage firm, obviously, we are a multi-person firm, so that's the box we check there. If you were a one-person firm, you would check that, obviously. Defined terms, you'll see here 3. We're working with Joseph K. cheat sheet and Linda W. cheat sheet. Use middle initials. Get in the habit right now of using middle initials. Now occasionally when you go to the buyer appointment, you won't have all the details yet, but as soon as you get them, be sure that you use the middle initials, because I've had to write amendments and I've seen my brokers have to write amend extends to add middle initials. because their identification at the closing, what's on their driver's license, needs to match the paperwork. You could probably get away without a middle initial on this, but you won't be able to do that on the contract to buy and sell when they decide to write an offer. Does that make sense to everyone? So, anyway, this is filled in with me, Cherry Creek Properties as the brokerage. It's filled in with me as the broker. This is from, and let me just make this clear, because I remember last time we had a question. This was printed from CTM e-contracts. So if you get the one that's straight from the Real Estate Commission or some other contract software, it may look a little bit different. But as you remember from real estate school, it has to be printed, the language has to be printed exactly the same on every form. So don't be fooled if it looks a little bit different. You can still use this as a cheat sheet because all the verbiage and all the sections are all the same. Does that make sense to everyone? So any property, notice 3.4, the property. Now, they may think they know exactly what they want, but just don't be fooled. You want to be kind of vague here, because sometimes buyers start out. I had somebody on my team just recently accidentally send his clients an attached single-family property, and they had said they didn't want it. Well, guess what they just bought? So it met their needs. I'm not saying ignore what your buyers are asking you for, but sometimes buyers don't know exactly what they want, so you don't want to box yourself in here. So you'll see any property acceptable to the buyer, right? I mean, that's purposefully vague. So, purchase, you see 3.5 is talking about leasing. So you could use this form to help someone lease, but we're going to assume that they're going to buy. So we're going to basically move on, and a lot of that information, I don't know why I'm showing it to you, like it's show and tell up here, like you guys can read this, can't you? So, 3.6 begins on that prior page. Now, in order for a contract to be valid, it has to have a specific beginning and end date. Specifically, an end date is what makes it valid. So this listing period here says that we're going to work together beginning on May 1st, and then we're going to, this contract will terminate on August 31st. Now, there's a lot of different schools of thought here. But if I were teaching you how to fill out a contract, I would tell you to do it for a relatively short period of time, maybe 60 days, maybe 90 days. A lot of people think, oh, I want to lock them in forever. Oh, no, you don't. Because if you lock them in forever and Broncos season starts and they want to go out all day Saturday and all day Sunday from now until the Broncos win the Super Bowl, right? You're going to be a little tired of them. So, what I tell people is, if we're working together and I'm understanding what you need, we should be able to get this done in about 45 to 60 days maximum. We probably won't even need that much time. So, does that make sense? We could make this agreement for one day. If we wanted to, we could make it for 1 week. You can make it for whatever term you want. But just be cognizant of the fact that there may be some buyers that you'd be happy when this expires. Maybe not. When you're new, that's hard to conceive of. But, just believe me, Bronco season or whatever season you like is going to be there. Ski season. So, applicability of terms. This is where they put in what NA means. We used to have to put in additional provisions every time in the contract to describe some of our abbreviations. So this says that it tells you the effect of checking a box and what NA means, or the word deleted. So 3.8, to skip down to 3.8.2, I usually check will. Like I said, there's no one way to do any of this, but my way is the right way. You guys are looking at me like, we don't know her well enough. No, she's really that arrogant or what? But I always check will. I don't care if it goes over to the next business day. Brokerage relationship. This is important. This is really describing your relationship and what happens in certain circumstances. Like, for example, you have the perfect listing and it meets their needs perfectly and you want to be able to show them that. That's why we check 4.3.1.2. This is where you have the conversation with them. In the rare case that I get a listing, which maybe you don't have at the time, if I get a listing that meets your needs perfectly, I'd like to be able to show that to you. In order to be able to do that, I need to drop back down to the referee and get into a more neutral position where I'm just making sure everybody plays by the rules. So in order to do that, I need to check this box that says that I'm allowed to do that. And I would advise you first that that was happening by using, who can tell me what's the name of the form?
Change of status.
Change of status, right on, yes. Change of status form. So does that make sense? But this is the box. If you don't check this, you cannot show your own listings. You cannot change to a transaction broker and double side your listing by getting the full commission versus, as Peggy said, offering half of your paycheck out to a buyer's agent. Does that make sense to everybody? But you don't know that's going to happen, so you wanted to establish it at the beginning. And I usually tell people, you know, it's kind of rare for that to happen, but just in case, I want to position us so that I could show you that property and perhaps even sell it to you. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So brokerage duties is section 5. Are you guys awake? This is so fascinating, isn't it? Here we're talking about uniform duties. Ooh, this is starting to sound like real estate school again, isn't it? And what I usually go through is I don't read this to everyone, but you know, I kind of go through. This is what I am going to do for you as well. I do this for you as a transaction broker, actually. But this is a list of the duties that we're required to do, and then. Number 6, because I am your buyer's agent, these are some additional duties that I'm required to perform. So, I don't know where you all went to school, but we used to teach it a certain way. And if I were in front of all Kaplan students, I know that I could say old car and D car, and they would probably remember back in their memory. Way back when. So, number 7, this is really where you protect your compensation. Number 7, compensation to brokerage firm. And you'll see underlined, brokerage firm is entitled to receive additional compensation, bonuses and incentives paid by listing brokerage firm or seller. That's another thing that didn't used to be in the standard and approved language. We used to have to write that in the additional provisions or but I underlined that just to point out to everybody that not so much in this market, but there was a time where it was harder to sell a listing. And if I had a listing that had to sell by the end of the year in a slower market, I might offer a $1,000 bonus to a broker bringing a contract that closed by such and such date. Now that's hard to believe in this market, right? But that means that you don't have to get any more permission from the buyer in order to accept any kind of bonus or incentive that the broker might offer you. Does that make sense to everybody? If you can imagine a bonus. Now people are fighting over the properties. So 7.1.1, that's the box that you really want to check. It says brokerage firm will be paid as follows. A fee equal to 2.8% of the purchase price, but not less than, we usually put NA in there. There's a place for the adjusted amount, that's usually NA. Then go to 7.113. I've underlined, if any transaction fails to close as a result of the buyer's default, in whole or in part, the success fee will not be waived. So if you, Mr. or Ms. Buyer, cause the transaction to melt down, you could still owe me a fee. Hello.
Sorry, guys.
If that's a Samsung, all you gotta do is flip it and it'll shut it off. I got to teach my son that little trick too. Anyway. Oh, is Somebody showed me and then I got to show off and show my 30-year-old son. Anyway, so I just want to point that out to you. Not that we would probably hold them. Honestly, there's a whole lot of language in here that protects us, and then we have to ask ourselves, you know, are we going to hold the buyer to it? But this is one of those provisions. If they purposefully cause the transaction not to happen, they could still owe you a fee. So I just wanted to point out that language. Obviously, I don't know, but we don't charge hourly fees or retainer fees for the most part. The way I understand it is if you choose to charge a retainer fee, you better be charging everyone and not just certain people. Yes?
I'm sorry,
No, it's okay.
I didn't understand what success fee is.
It's the commission.
Oh.
Only now, you know, it's so much more lovely to call it a success fee. But we don't call it a commission. I don't know why they came up with that. There's probably some kind of great story behind it, but success fee means if I'm successful at helping you buy, I get a fee. That's a success fee.
So the buyer, if buyer defaults,
If the
will have
buyer,
to pay?
buyer might, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Now, that's the letter of the law. I don't know your name. What's your name?
Mary.
Mary. That's the letter of the law. And you'll find that sometimes in the paperwork, there's the letter of the law, and then there's what we really probably do in real life. If I have a buyer that becomes flaky and freaks out and decides, I'm not buying for whatever reason, I could say, oh, well, I certainly understand that, but go ahead and write me a check for X amount according to the terms of the contract. That's the letter of the law. Would I recommend that? You conduct yourself that way with a client? Probably not. You probably say, okay, I understand. I'm sorry that you're losing your earnest money, you goof nugget. No, I wouldn't say that either. But, you know, you probably wouldn't hold them to it. But I just want to point that out, that it is in there. So that if you have a buyer and you feel like you are owed that commission and you've worked hard and you showed them you can hold them to that. That's why it's in there. Most people don't read through these things, but I just want to show you it's there. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, but you show this to the buyer,
Right.
before they sign the contract, they read everything. So when they read this, they say, oh, I'm not going to sign it.
That's why I'm saying, you have to have a good presentation with a good sales pitch to get them to want to work with you as your buyer's agent. And if you don't know beforehand how you're going to tell them it's in their best interest to work with you as an agent, I'm not sure how Peggy does that exactly, but I have some bullet points that I say, and here's why I work as a buyer's agent, and here's why you would want me to work as your buyer's agent. And the last point on there is, probably the most important thing I usually say to people is, I give you information as your agent that you might not even know to ask me for. And most people feel like that's a valuable service. That's the last point. There are like 4 different points. But you have to tell them there's a reason. And oh, by the way, this is how I make a living. And if you do something to purposefully cause the transaction not to close after we've done all this work and I've done all these 500 signatures and all the things that we do, then I can still charge you a commission. This is our agreement. So I can still see you've got that look like, I wouldn't sign it. But you have to be confident in your ability to convey to somebody why they want you as their representative. And you know what? If they're going to screw around and let the contract fall apart anyway, it's a waste of your time. Most people are like, oh, that would never happen. But maybe they say, I can't buy that house. I want out of it. I just can't do it. I want the other one instead, you see. So it's funny what comes up. Funny meaning sometimes it's not so funny. But I've never had anybody balk at that particular provision. But then I don't underline and point it out to them exactly in that way either. Because I'm in sales. I'm not, you know what I mean? I would present it differently. And what I do is when I meet with a buyer and I present them with their packet, I give them a copy of this. And I say, here's this for your review. Today, we're meeting for the first time, and what I do a lot of times is I'll say, we'll go out today. I'll be working as your transaction broker if you're pre-approved. I don't get them in the car if they're not pre-approved. Does that make sense? Most of the time, I meet with them. I go over everything. I send them home. We're not looking at property that day. I send them home with their homework. One of their pieces of homework is to read through the agreement so they can be comfortable with it. The other thing I do is I have my lender give them a call, or I introduce them to a couple of lenders. Okay, so they've got their homework, but they've got this to review. Does that make sense to everybody? There's other things they're not going to want to hear in here too, Mary. So let's move on to So no hourly fee, no retainer. I just, don't teach it that way. Now, I wrote this in where it says 714. You can see some handwriting in there because I had somebody ask me about whether or not we were allowed to charge the buyer for a transaction fee. So, since we've got Dave and Sam that review all our files, I thought I'm going to run it through them and see what they think. And this is the way I was told was the best way to do it. It's optional. Notice it says optional if the buyer is to pay the CCP transaction fee. Now I've got a group of about 25 brokers. Some of them, the minute they heard that somebody else could pay it, they were all over it, baby. They had this in the agreement from the first buyer. Other people are like, oh no, I wouldn't dare ask them to pay for that. But, so wherever you lie in that spectrum, if you want the buyer or the seller, you can put it in your listing agreement to pay that fee, put it in there, and this is the verbiage for that. Processing fee to CCP, $199 or $249 if you're INC, you know who you are, paid only upon closing. This is the exact verbiage Sam gave me to put in the contract, and he said to put it in this section. So, pretty much from there down, did you have questions? Did you?
Well, I'm just agreeing.
You're just like highlighting that. I can tell what kind of guy he is. That's fine. I mean, why pay it if it's, it's usually a drop in the bucket. So here's the one that we want you to check. Now there are several boxes to check here. Marion, you can pay attention to this one. 731 says, listing brokerage firm or seller may pay. Buyer is obligated to pay. And I underlined some verbiage there to call your attention to it. Broker is authorized and instructed to request payment of brokerage firm's fee from the listing brokerage firm or seller. Most likely that's where it's going to come from, Mr. or Ms. Buyer. Buyer is obligated to pay any portion of the brokerage firm's fee which is not paid by the listing brokerage firm. Now why would it be important to check that box?
Because you introduce them to Trelora.
Right on. So there are flat fee companies out there that survive by collecting full commissions on the buy side, but they only want to pay a flat fee to those people who are bringing the buyer to their listings. So here's what I put. I checked 3.1. Then if you'll flip to the last page, second to the last page, page 5, notice where it says suggested. If you're going to do that, you can put in here, buyer will be advised if broker is showing a listing that pays less than 2.8% to the buyer's agent. So it's very rare that that happens, but we've already talked about how I get paid. And you've agreed to, as Peggy had on her slide up here, to help me get paid, So you're just saying, there are a few companies out there that pay less than that, and unfortunately, that's the way it goes. But I will be sure and let you know if we go and look at one of those listings, so you'll be aware. And you can make the choice whether you want to see it or not. Does that make sense? Is that a way to protect your money? Yes.
Does that also apply to FSBOs, or is FSBOs
Yes.
different?
It could, yep.
Yeah.
If you go to for sale by owner, yep.
What was the question?
It doesn't apply to for sale by owners. That's the last thing you want. Oh, there's a for sale by owner, let's stop. Okay. So you gotta go, knock, 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 commission, will you pay my commission?
I was
Yes.
gonna tell you
Yes.
too, you realtors, that title companies charge FSBOs a really high closing fee. So if they think they're gonna save money, they're gonna pay more because they ask us to do everything a realtor
Yes.
would do.
Oh,
Help us write the
interesting.
contract, help us do that. So when you
Yeah.
add an attorney review fee and the higher closing fee, you're looking at $1,000. So for you as a buyer's agent, you might wanna get your commission.
There you go. And a lot of for sale by owners, well, I shouldn't say a lot of them, but many will pay a realtor co-op.
They will.
But that's you're stepping up and saying, sure, I'm happy to look at it, but and I'll do my best to get the commission from that individual, but there's no listing agreement providing me 2.8, so, you know, just a warning. Let's look at it anyway. So anyway, you go, ooh. Anyway, so far so good, we're almost done here. Now, there are other boxes you can check. Back to page, what page am I? Oh, back to page 4. You can check 7.3.2. That means that you're going to seek your fee, your success fee from the buyer only. Or you can check 7.3.3, which is honestly the coward's way out. And where a lot of people are in the habit of, well, I'm saying that's very judgmental, sorry, but see how much easier it is to check that box? Listing brokerage firm or seller may pay, buyer is not obligated to pay. So that means you're stuck with whatever the company that's offering a very low fee to you is willing to pay. And so I just say, use the company as the bad guy. Say, my company really encourages us. We need to check that one. If you get questioned on it, most people won't question it. We just think they will. Go ahead, Peggy.
A lot of times too, you have to understand, when you show up with these contracts, it helps if you've got them filled out.
Yes, that's
Same
what I
with a
do.
listing, if you've got your listing fee filled out already, it's a lot easier for you to defend if it's already filled out
Yes.
than for you to go, so which one should I check? Like,
No, and you know
then
what?
it's
And that's the
finished.
thing. A lot of people coming out of real estate school are taught, which is I teach it, so I know that these boxes and blanks are all negotiable. But what I do is I show up with my buyer back booklet that I give to the buyer, but on the other side, I've already got this filled out. It's got their name in it. It's got everything the way I want it. Pretty much. And I say, be sure you review that, because we'll be addressing it once we get the pre-qualification in place or pre-approval in place and we move forward. I teach my brokers to get it on the very first meeting, and a lot of them do. So, yes.
If you show up and you have it filled out and they're adamant,
Then what you do is here's what I say. You can do it a couple different ways. You can pen and ink it, scan, and have everybody initial. That's perfectly doable if it's between you and the buyer. Or you can say, okay, what I'm going to do is we'll pen and ink it on this copy. We'll go ahead and sign it. So it's basically official. But I'm going to go back home. I'm going to change it in my electronic contract software, send it to you. You can sign it electronically. So it just depends on how you want to do it. But this agreement is between you and the buyer. And a pen and ink change of a little small change is absolutely acceptable as long as it's initialed by everyone.
Did you mean change it, or that they wouldn't sign it at all?
change it. Like
Yeah.
if I had to change the box there, yeah.
I would cross through it and then have everybody initial it and mark the correct box. So, but then again, like I said, everybody that I work with uses CTME contracts. Again, that's why I've got this one. And I would say, then back up, make the change, have them electronically sign it. Does that make sense? But even, I have to do the same thing with a listing agreement. You fill everything out before you get there, basically. And if you had to change the price, you can line through it and initial it. I mean, so there's more than one way to skin a cat, if you'd like to use that analogy.
And I would encourage you guys to practice presenting that with your mentors.
Yes.
Because I think confidence in your ability to say, well, this paragraph says this paragraph says this is this.
Yeah.
If you understand that, any questions? No, initial here, please, next page.
Yeah.
Okay, initial here, please, next page. And I think.
And you're not stuttering and saying, is that okay with you?
And most people expect you to know this stuff. And I gotta tell you, most people are expecting you to come
do that.
forward. You're a professional.
Yes.
To come forward with something.
Yep. Tell me
whether
what
it
to
be
do, that's why I'm going with you.
Definitions or something.
Yes.
That they, so don't be all, oh, okay.
And you have to
sign,
practice it.
please?" You know.
And it's part of what you do with buyers. This morning, I teach my brokers 10 to noon, every Tuesday. And they were sitting there, taking turns, presenting to buyers, brand new buyers, so.
I was just gonna say, it's kind of the same like when we do closings, there's a shtick, and the more you practice it, the easier it gets. I mean, like, I can present a closing with my eyes shut, and it's the
Yeah.
same jokes, the same
Yes.
material.
Yeah.
And it's so much easier if you actually,
Yep.
you know,
Practice
presenting
it.
your contracts or your other docs, if you practice by yourself. You may
And
feel
you
silly.
will, yeah, and you will. And like I said, I'm not presenting this to you in the same way I would do it with a buyer. I'm explaining to you and giving you ideas for blanks and check boxes and a little bit about the content. This is perfectly sanctioned by Dave and Sam though, so if you use this as your cheat sheet, that's what I do with my brokers. They call me and say, oh, I got a buyer, we just met, or we're gonna meet Sunday and I want them to sign the buyer's agreement, buyer agency agreement. Good, complete it. Send me a text and I'll review it to make sure it's done right. That's why you have a cheat sheet. So you have the confidence of knowing, okay, I have a little bit of a head start. I know a little bit about what to do. Now, I may have questions for my mentor, and I would suggest you go through your mentor and say, I got a cheat sheet from Lori. There's never one way to do anything. If Peggy was standing up here teaching you how to fill this in, she might teach you a little different way. In real estate school, we make it seem like there's a right way and there's a wrong way. Well, that's not really true, except for the NA, no blanks. But it's up to you. But I'm going to suggest, again, that you check 7-3-1 as a habit. Have it done in advance, practice with someone. And then if they have a fit, then you can change it. But that's really what you want. So let's skip down here to the holdover period. I usually put 60 days in the holdover period. This is 7.4. This is how you protect your commission from somebody trying to use you to look at all the houses and then go behind your back and not pay you by dealing directly with the seller or something like that. Frankly, it's not worth a whole lot. But you have it in there just to warn people against being shady. So, and I also say, it says here the checkbox will, it says the buyer will owe the compensation if they go back and buy a listing that you showed to them. And fill it out and then say, it's ready, will you take a look at it? It's because I want them to read it. I want them to have to read it and go, which one do I check? Why do I check that? You'll only have to read it a couple times and it'll make perfect sense. You'll be an expert. So we've got 9. The buyer, obligation to broker. Buyer represents that buyer is not currently a party to any other agreement. This reminds you to make sure that you're not signing them up under a buyer's agency and they're already subject to a buyer's agency. Like I said, I'm not presenting this exactly like I would. Go down to 12.1. And like I said, check with your mentor if you want on some of these, but the following additional tasks will be performed by the broker. I put none in there. Showing properties. This is the blank you see under 12.2. The sentence is, broker's limitations on accessing premises are as follows. Broker's limitations used to be we'd put in electronic lock boxes because we had to have a special key to get in. Now they have day codes you can use. So you really don't have a lot of limitations. But here's a blank that people always miss. It seems like my brokers don't see this. And it's, the next thing, it says broker through, it's on 12.2 at the very end. Broker through brokerage firm has access to the following: multiple listing services and property information services. This tells them, I'm going to be looking in the Denver Metro list, which frankly, all the properties are in there now. I have somebody that put a Fort Collins listing in the Denver MLS and sold it, you know, within a few days. So, and I wasn't sure, it used to be we had to be concerned about which MLS that people were looking in to find properties, but it all shares around now. So let's see, disclosure of buyer's identity, just so you know, you check does. Now, if you're working with Donald Trump or, you know, John Elway, or I was going to say Eli Manning. Anyway, if you're working with somebody that's famous, it requires special legal paperwork to not disclose their identity. It's a big pain in the butt, so it's not like, oh, you just want to be secret. It requires legal lawyer involvement to not disclose identity. So you always put does. And then, you know, it's just standard verbiage. Down below, again, that additional provisions, suggested verbiage is just to remind them that, you know, in the unlikely event that I show you a property that's paying less than 2.8, I'll be sure and let you know, and you can let me know if you'd still like to see the property. And then I usually check all the means of electronic delivery. So really, you know, it's pretty easy paperwork. This is one of the easiest contracts that you'll fill out. Questions for me? Would this be helpful to you?
Yeah.
Again, if you're working with a mentor, which I'm sure you are, be sure to run it by them, or, you know, if you have questions, but this is sanctioned by Dave and Sam, and that's really who we have to please here, since they approve our files, and they're the ones that let us get paid. So anyway, it's been a pleasure to talk to you about this. Questions, thoughts?